A millionaire, unable to have children, found abandoned triplets crying in his mansion. As he approached, he was stunned. They looked like... On the outskirts of Los Angeles City, there she was, a striking sight, clad in a red leather miniskirt and platform heels, and all her energy poured into pushing an old white Volkswagen Beetle from behind. The car's dying engine offered only the faintest wheeze, in protest. "Damn it," Mary muttered, caught between frustration and exhaustion, as the car barely budged a few inches before seeming to root itself to the ground. She paused, both hands braced against the vehicle, catching her breath. Amid the scorching heat and the echo of her own struggle, a thought surfaced from somewhere deep within her. It's not the weight of the car that drains you, but the resistance of the road and the loneliness of the hands doing the pushing. Yet, even in this effort, there's beauty, because it speaks to a soul that refuses to quit. Just then, the purr of an engine broke through her reverie. A green sports car, a Aston Martin Vantage V8, one of those machines that seemed more spaceship than car, pulled up effortlessly beside her. The window slid down with an electric hum, revealing a man with a perfectly groomed face, dark sunglasses, and a smirk brimming with smugness. "Think some spinach could turn you into Popeye?" he quipped, his laughter engineered to sting. She turned slightly, her glare sharp enough to cut glass. "And you? Are you here to offer motivation or just show off your car while I burn calories? Thanks for the input. Car of the year." The man arched a brow behind his shades, spun the steering wheel, and parked the car gracefully on the side of the road. Stepping out, his crisp white shirt clung to him like it had been ironed directly onto his body. "Don't worry," he said, flashing a grin. "Today's your lucky day. I'm here to save you, since clearly mechanics aren't your strong suit. As a woman, of course. No need for those heels to suffer more than they already have on this road." She crossed her arms, giving him a once-over with a biting smile. What a relief. Nothing like a modern gentleman to remind me of my incompetence while swooping in to save the day. As my grandfather used to say, help that humiliates isn't help. It's just an excuse to feed someone's ego. He ignored her jab, chuckling as he strolled to the front of the Beetle. With an over-the-top flourish, he popped the hood like he was unveiling the mysteries of the universe. It must be some mechanical nonsense, probably a beast to you, but a piece of cake for me. "Sure, seeing is believing," she replied, with a tone that dripped with sarcastic applause. He leaned into the engine, fiddled with a couple of wires, and in the process of trying to fix something, a sudden spark lit up the space, followed by a deafening bang. A dark cloud of smoke billowed out, swirling like his now bruised confidence. "Oh my God, what did you just do? You know what my grandpa used to say? Sometimes, those who underestimate others end up proving their own shortcomings," she exclaimed, her hands flying to her face. He stumbled back, coughing and waving his hand in front of his face, trying to mask his blunder with a forced grin. "Not my fault you're driving this clunker. If you had a car like mine, this would never have happened." She shot him a furious glare as the smoke from her ruined engine slowly dissipated. "All right, Mr. Know-It-All. Since you just blew up my Beetle, I guess that makes me your responsibility out here in the middle of nowhere. So, figure it out and get me out of here." He let out a heavy sigh, muttering something unintelligible under his breath as he ruffled his hair, clearly regretting stopping in the first place. With a resigned nod, he gestured toward his car parked a few yards away. "Fine, let's go. But don't expect me to open the door for you, all right?" She raised an eyebrow, her look a sharp, unspoken retort. "Relax. Your heroism has its limits. I get it." They started walking toward his sleek green sports car. Despite her sky-high heels clicking confidently against the pavement, she moved with a grace that contrasted his hands in pockets shuffle. He couldn't help but cast a glance back at the small plume of smoke still rising from the Volkswagen, as though the car itself was mocking him. When they reached his flashy ride, he paused, catching her gaze before speaking with his signature irony. "So, where am I taking you, oh damsel in distress?" he asked with a teasing tone, stealing a quick sideways glance at her. Then, with a barely concealed smirk, he added, "Or should I drop you off somewhere more fitting? Maybe a street, where rocking a miniskirt and heels works wonders." She turned to him slowly, her stare so sharp it could have cut through his windshield if it were a weapon. "At her job interview, Mr. Know-It-All," she replied with an elegant sharpness. "Job interview?" He raised an eyebrow, glancing at her sideways. "Dressed like that? I guess it's not very formal." The chuckle that followed was cut off abruptly by her reply. "I'm a model." He fell silent, his smirk fading for a moment. After a brief pause, his mocking tone returned. "Well, you can't be in high demand if you're driving around in that old Beetle." She interrupted him with a choked sob, tears streaming down her face as she confessed, "It's my first modeling interview. It's been my dream forever, even though I'm just a waitress." He sighed, the weight of his earlier words sinking in. Something inside him stirred, a realization. Respect isn't something you buy or demand. It's earned by recognizing another's worth, even through your own biases. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it," he muttered awkwardly, a stark contrast to his usual confident demeanor. She looked up, arms crossed, offering a faint smile that balanced on the edge of sadness and sarcasm. "See, Mr. Know-It-All, I'm a beauty with a purpose." They both broke into unexpected laughter, lightening the tension for just a moment. "I'm Nicholas Evans Reynolds," he said, bowing slightly with a self-satisfied grin. "And you? What's your name, gorgeous?" She eyed him with a mix of disbelief and amusement. "Mary Bell Stewart." He nodded, as if weighing the contrast. "All right, Mary Bell. I'm at your service. I'll take you to your interview. Just give me the address. By the way, I'm sure they'll hire you. You're the most stunning woman I've ever seen." She smiled, wiping away her tears as she prepared to give him directions. But before she could speak, a shrill alarm blared from the car's dashboard. He glanced at the touchscreen, frowning. "Damn, someone's breaking into my mansion." Her eyes widened in shock. "What are you going to do now, Nicholas?" His smirk returned, tinged with both confidence and determination. "The real question is, what are we going to do? My mansion's close by. We're heading there right now." Sometimes life's fragile moments weave destinies together with threads of purpose and surprise. She opened her mouth, perhaps to object, but the words caught in her throat as the car made a sharp turn. The sports car roared like an unleashed beast, pinning her against the seat as he maneuvered with unnerving precision. Her stunned gaze stayed locked on him, trying to process what she just heard as the car sped toward the unexpected destination. Minutes later, they arrived at the mansion, a towering structure that loomed like a defiant monument against time and the landscape. He parked with a mix of force and finesse, every movement exuding control. "Stay here," he instructed firmly. "I don't want anything to happen to you." "Why not just call the police? Is it worth risking your life over stuff?" she protested. "The system alerts me first. It's designed that way," he replied. "I don't usually involve the police unless I'm absolutely certain someone has broken in," Nicholas said, his voice steady, but unable to mask the sharp attention in his eyes. "This mansion isn't my main home. I only come here when I need complete privacy. That's why no one else is around." He turned to her, took her hand gently, and pressed a reassuring kiss to it, offering her a calming smile. "I promise I'll be careful." The security system beeped again. Nicholas quickly checked his phone and saw the message. "No recent activity. Property secure." "Looks like whoever it was is gone," he said with a relieved sigh. "I'm going inside." "I'm coming with you," she replied firmly. "You didn't leave me alone out on the road, so I'm not leaving you now." There was no more argument. Sometimes, a promise made in a tense moment carries a weight that feels eternal. Protecting someone you love is as much about guarding your soul as it is about keeping them safe. With a resigned sigh, they walked hand in hand toward the house. As they entered, a strange noise echoed from upstairs, slicing through the stillness. A sound that didn't belong. It was faint, but insistent, crying. Fragile yet intense, it sent a shiver down their spines. They exchanged startled glances, then, without a word, raced up the staircase. Their footsteps echoed off the marble as they rushed to the master bedroom. Nicholas pushed the door open with purpose, his breath unsteady, but his determination unwavering. Inside, the opulent room, with its velvet curtains and silk-covered bed, was dominated by a small basket sitting on the bed, and in that basket, 3 identical babies wailed, their tiny faces wet with tears. Their cries broke only for fleeting, radiant smiles, as though their arrival had been the answer the infants were waiting for. Mary Bell stared wide-eyed. "Nicholas, are these your children? Where did they come from, and why do they look exactly like you?" Nicholas, his shock plain, barely managed to reply. I can't answer any of those questions," he said, his voice laden with disbelief. "Sometimes, life throws us mysteries we're not ready for, but the answers always come when the time is right." He couldn't take his eyes off the babies, his confusion quickly morphing into a deep, suffocating uncertainty. Finally, he looked to Mary Bell, his voice trembling. "I have to choose, to protect them or uncover the truth. I can't do both at once." Mary Bell, still absorbing the overwhelming scene, took a steady breath. Her voice was clear and firm. "Nicholas, the truth can wait. The children can't." In a rare moment of vulnerability, Nicholas asked softly, "Will you help me?" She nodded slowly, a small smile breaking through her composed expression. "You're not alone." Nicholas exhaled deeply, like he'd been holding his breath for hours. But then, a flicker of concern crossed his face. "What about your job interview? Your dream of becoming a model?" Mary Bell crossed her arms with a calm yet resolute look. "The skirt and heels will still be there tomorrow. There will be other castings later. But these babies only have one chance, and it's right now, and I'm here for it." With a small nostalgic smile, she added, "Like my grandfather used to say, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is pause your own dreams to share your strength with those who need it most." "Besides," she said, her eyes twinkling mischievously, "there are 3 of them, Nicholas. No way am I leaving you alone with this trio. Unless, of course, you think you're a know-it-all." Nicholas let out a resigned chuckle, the weight of the moment briefly lifted by her teasing. "Let's take care of these little ones," Mary Bell said, leaning over the bassinet to check on the babies, who were still crying inconsolably. She examined them carefully and quickly came to a conclusion. "Nicholas, I'm telling you, this is a disaster zone," she said with a smirk. "These diapers need changing ASAP." She stepped back, waving a hand in front of her nose to fend off the smell. Nicholas grimaced and instinctively moved back as if the odor might physically push him away. "Changing diapers? I don't even know how to open one." Mary Bell crossed her arms, an amused grin on her face. "Relax, genius. Even a know-it-all can learn something new," she teased. "But first, we're going to need some tools." Her tone was playful as she continued. "I used to babysit before waiting tables, so don't worry. I've got this under control. But I'll need supplies. Call someone to bring us diapers, formula, bottles, everything I'm about to list." Nicholas raised an eyebrow. Diaper delivery. That's not exactly normal where I come from. Well, Mr. Millionaire, we're in Los Angeles City, she replied with a chuckle. I'm sure you've got contacts who can deliver caviar if you ask. Before long, the supplies arrived. Mary Bell organized everything with an efficiency that caught Nicholas off guard. Together, they began feeding the triplets, who gradually calmed down, letting the room settle into a peaceful quiet. They've got quite the appetites, Nicholas commented, fumbling awkwardly with a bottle. It's like they're already calling the shots around here. When the babies finished eating, Mary Bell prepared a warm bath for them. Nicholas pitched in, albeit hesitantly. As they removed the baby's clothes for the bath, something caught their attention, a small birthmark clearly visible on the lower back of one of the babies. Nicholas checked the other two and froze, his face turning pale. Mary Bell immediately noticed his change in demeanor. "What's wrong, Nicholas? What's going on?" she asked, concern lacing her voice. He swallowed hard, his throat tight, and after a brief pause, he unbuttoned his shirt and pulled it free from his pants. Turning around, he pointed to the same spot on his own back. "See for yourself," he said gravely. "It's the Reynolds family birthmark." Mary Bell gasped, covering her mouth in disbelief. "So, there's no doubt. They look just like you because they are yours," she said softly. "Well, Nicholas, it looks like you got a woman pregnant, and she decided to drop your kids off at your mansion," she added with a playful smirk. Nicholas's expression darkened, his features hardening into a serious, almost stoic mask. "That's impossible," he replied, his tone tense. Mary Bell raised an eyebrow, clearly catching on to his shift in attitude. "Impossible? What, did you use some foolproof protection method?" she asked with a sarcastic grin. Nicholas kept his gaze fixed downward for a moment before speaking. "Why am I sterile?" His words hung in the air, raw and unguarded. Mary Bell froze, her lips parted as though searching for a response that wouldn't come. Silence settled heavily between them. Sterility isn't just a physical condition. It's a test of the soul, she thought, forcing people to confront the uncertainty of their legacy and the fragility of their beliefs. Still absorbing Nicholas's confession, Mary Bell exhaled deeply, as if trying to bring order to the whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. She lifted her eyes, her expression firm with determination. "We need to check the footage. Maybe you'll recognize whoever brought them." Nicholas shook his head. "Let's bathe the babies first. Once we're done, we'll deal with that." His voice was steady, though tinged with the weariness that clung to him. Mary Bell hesitated, but eventually nodded. The vulnerability of the tiny infants demanded their immediate attention. In caring for the small and fragile, they found the essence of something greater. Protecting, even amid uncertainty, was an act of faith. The two worked together, though Nicholas's awkwardness stood in stark contrast to Mary Bell's ease. "Nicholas, it's not fine china. It's a baby. He won't break." Her reassuring smile eased his nerves. Nicholas held the infant gingerly, as though the world might shatter if he made a mistake. "You're sure these things don't come with a manual? I feel like I'm messing this up every second." Mary Bell laughed softly, sliding the baby into the warm water. "Nicholas, babies aren't as delicate as your masculine insecurities. Relax." When they finished bathing the triplets, they wrapped them in soft towels and placed them back in their basket. As Mary Bell soothed them with her gentle voice, she whispered, "Sleep, little ones. Love is waiting for you. And in your dreams, the truest truths are woven. Sleep, little ones. The sun rests now, and the night cradles you in the moon's loving arms." Later in the security room, Nicholas powered up the screens. The bluish glow illuminated their faces as the most recent footage began to play. They watched as a woman in a dark hood and scarf nearly concealing her entire face, moved quickly toward a side entrance. She carried the basket with the triplets in her arms, her movements brisk but deliberate. The recording showed her crossing the lobby with practiced precision before heading upstairs. For a brief moment, she disappeared from one camera's view, only to reappear at the entrance to the main bedroom. Gently placing the basket on the bed, she did something unexpected. She retrieved a document from her bag and held it up to the camera. Nicholas and Mary Bell instinctively leaned closer to the screen, straining to decipher what she was showing. The large paper bore a bold header: Pure Love Fertility Clinic, Donor Registry. The clinic's logo was clearly visible beside the text. "What the hell?" Nicholas muttered, narrowing his eyes as he tried to process what he was seeing. The woman held the document steady for several seconds, as if ensuring the camera captured every detail. Then, with the same calculated movements, she exited the room. "Do you know that clinic?" Mary Bell finally broke the silence. Nicholas didn't answer right away. His eyes remained glued to the screen, as if the images might somehow offer him more answers than they already had. Clarity can be just as terrifying as darkness when it shines a light on the corners you'd rather not see. After what felt like an eternity, Nicholas straightened in his chair and stood up. "Yes, unfortunately I do," he admitted, "but I'm going to need a drink to talk about it. Come on, let's go to the living room." Nicholas walked toward the living room, his steps deliberate, his face tense, as if every thought was forcing him to confront something he had tried to bury for years. Mary Bell followed quietly, sensing the weight of the moment in his every move. The softly lit room, with its minimalist decor, felt like the perfect backdrop for a confession that could upend everything. Nicholas poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking, handing one to Mary Bell. She took it, her curiosity evident, but didn't drink. Nicholas, on the other hand, downed a long sip, almost as though he needed it to burn through the words before he could say them. "A few years ago," he began, placing his glass on the sleek glass coffee table in front of him, "I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. It wasn't terminal, but the treatment involved chemo and some harsh medications. They told me there was a strong chance I'd become infertile. It was devastating." Mary Bell sat across from him on the sofa, her face a mix of compassion and anticipation. "On my doctor's advice, I decided to freeze my sperm before starting treatment. The clinic I used was the very one called Amor Puro." His voice softened, almost to a whisper. "After the treatment, it turned out I was indeed infertile. But I didn't destroy the samples. I don't even know why. Maybe I was clinging to the hope of a different future." Mary Bell nodded, her expression suggesting she understood more than she said. Her gentle tone eased some of the tension in the air. "So, how do you think those babies ended up here?" Nicholas exhaled deeply, rubbing his temples as if trying to piece together a puzzle with missing pieces. Finally, he looked at Mary Bell, his face a mix of disbelief and anguish. "It must have been an accidental implantation, a mistake at the clinic. My sample must have been used in the wrong procedure without the woman knowing. Maybe she wanted children with a specific donor, maybe even her partner. But when the babies were born and they didn't resemble the man she expected, she realized something was off." Mary Bell processed his words silently before asking, her voice balancing reason and empathy. "How could you prove something like that?" Nicholas leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his gaze fixed on the floor, as though it might hold the answers. "The clinic must have records. Details about the procedures, the samples used. That's the only way to figure out what happened." Mary Bell broke the silence that followed with a small, reassuring smile, as if trying to lighten the heavy air between them. As my grandfather would say in a situation as unusual as this, the level of uncertainty about our destination is directly tied to the value we'll find in seeking answers. Nicholas looked up at her, catching the calmness she was trying to convey. I hope your grandfather also had advice for what to do after we find those answers, he said, with a faint smile, though his voice still carried a trace of concern. For now, let's grab something to eat before the triplets wake up again, demanding their bottles. Order something for delivery, but keep it light. I have to maintain this supermodel physique. Her playful comment drew laughter from both of them. As dawn broke, Nicholas, who hadn't slept either, picked up his phone, his worn but determined eyes fixed on the task ahead. He dialed the number of a well-known private detective agency to investigate what had happened at the fertility center. After a quick rundown of the situation, he promised to send over the relevant recordings and documents. On the other end of the call, the agency assured him the matter would be handled with utmost priority and confidentiality. Without missing a beat, Nicholas made another call, this time to his trusted lawyer, asking him to come to the mansion immediately. Not long after, the room became thick with an air of restrained tension. Nicholas stood upright, while Mary Bell sat silently, the basket of triplets at her side, watching him closely. The lawyer, seated across from them, listened intently as Nicholas recounted the events, taking notes with mechanical precision. Once the story was laid out, the lawyer spoke with gravity. All right, Nicholas, the first step is to begin the legal process to confirm paternity. This means requesting DNA tests to establish your connection to the babies. The situation is unusual, but we need to act proactively. Nicholas frowned. Proactively? What does that mean? Because the babies were abandoned on your property, we must notify the authorities immediately, the lawyer explained. Nicholas nodded slowly, trying to process the implications. So I have to inform the police? Nicholas asked, his voice heavy. The lawyer confirmed with a nod. At that moment, Mary Bell, who had remained quiet until then, spoke up, her voice soft yet firm enough to command attention. I don't know why, but I feel like human laws often go against the true spirit of justice, the kind that doesn't need rules to protect what's right. Her words hung in the air, echoing in the space between their legal arguments. Nicholas looked at her, clearly moved by her perspective, while the lawyer paused mid-note, sensing the weight of her sentiment. Nicholas exhaled deeply, running a hand through his hair, ruffling it in a gesture of exhaustion. The forced calm that had settled over the room was shattered when the sound of patrol cars pulling up outside the mansion broke through the tension. The blue and red glow of the lights seeped through the windows, painting the walls with a pulsating radiance that seemed to breathe with each rotation of the sirens, though they were now silent. Nicholas sprang up from the couch, his face a mix of disbelief and panic. Mary Bell, clutching the basket in her arms, pressed her lips together tightly, holding the babies as if her embrace could shield them from the inevitable. The front door burst open with a sharp crack, and two officers, accompanied by a social worker, strode in with purposeful steps. Mr. Reynolds, one of the officers addressed, his tone calm but heavy with authority. We're here to take custody of the children until their legal status is resolved. Nicholas stepped forward, his body rigid as if trying to physically bar their way. The social worker, a middle-aged woman with kind but weary eyes, raised a hand in a placating gesture. We understand how difficult this is, Mr. Reynolds, she said softly, but until paternity is confirmed, the children need to be in institutional care to ensure their safety. Safety? Nicholas interjected, his voice laced with disbelief and simmering anger. What kind of safety are you promising them away from me? They were abandoned here, with me. I'm all they have right now. As if sensing the rising tension, the triplets began to cry, their piercing wails shattering the silence like glass crashing to the floor. Mary Bell instinctively rocked them, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Sir," the other officer cut in, his tone sharper, "this isn't up for debate. It's a legal procedure." Nicholas turned to the social worker, his voice dropping to a low, fervent whisper, heavy with anguish. "Look at them. They're just days old. Do you really think separating them from the only people caring for them is right? Is that what justice looks like?" Mary Bell's voice cracked as she hugged the babies tighter. "You don't understand what you're doing. These babies don't need a cold, unfamiliar place filled with strangers. They need love, warmth. Please." The social worker hesitated, her gaze falling on the triplets, whose desperate cries filled the room. But after a brief pause, she sighed heavily and extended her hands toward Mary Bell. "Miss, I don't want to cause you more pain, but we have to follow protocol." Mary Bell stepped back, as if her resistance could stop what was coming. Nicholas stood beside her, his eyes burning with barely contained fury. "Listen to me," he said, his voice trembling with emotion yet firm. "I'll do whatever it takes to prove these children are mine, but if you take them from here today, you're condemning them to suffering they don't deserve." The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the echo of the baby's cries reverberating off the marble walls. Nicholas cradled the basket, holding the triplets with a gentleness that belied his tense frame and clenched jaw. He stepped toward the social worker, stopping halfway. "I'll do whatever it takes to fix this quickly," he said, his voice filled with a steely resolve, aimed as much at the system as at fate itself. The social worker nodded regretfully and took the basket. The babies continued to wail as they were carried toward the door. Nicholas and Mary Bell stood motionless, watching as the red and blue lights played across the tear-streaked faces of the infants before they disappeared into the night. When the door closed, the silence in the room became unbearable. Nicholas sank back onto the couch, running his hands over his face as if trying to erase the scene they'd just witnessed. "This isn't over," he murmured, his words barely audible in the vastness of the mansion. "Does this interesting story remind you of a lovely relationship of yours? Why not comment the first letter of their name so everyone can guess? Then, we will continue listening." Mary Bell stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her touch was light, but carried all the strength she had left. "You're not alone, Nicholas. Don't forget that," she said. Nicholas turned to her, his voice breaking. "Please tell me what your grandfather would say right now." Mary Bell replied softly, "My grandfather would say that adversity is the forge where brave hearts are shaped, no matter what is taken from your hands. As long as love remains in your soul, every battle lost will be a step toward winning the most important war. Never let despair stop you from fighting for what's right." He hugged her tightly, their tears mingling, and then said with determination, "Come on, Chickalinda. It's time for a shopping spree. We're getting you some new skirts. You can't keep wearing the same clothes, and I won't let you leave my house. I need you here with me." She asked innocently, "Why skirts of all things, Mr. Know-It-All?" "Because your legs are the only thing that can take my mind off the pain in my heart," he replied, the words slipping out like a confession. She kissed his forehead and gave him the warmest hug. The luxury boutique sparkled with soft lights that highlighted the elegance of each outfit on display. Nicholas sat comfortably in a plush velvet chair, watching Mary Bell as she flitted in and out of the fitting room. Each time, she appeared in a new ensemble of skirts, blouses, and high heels. "How does this look?" she asked, stepping out in a sleek black skirt paired with a red blouse that hugged her figure perfectly. She twirled gracefully, letting the fabric flow with her movements. Nicholas smiled wide, resting his chin on his hand like a judge at a runway show. "You look stunning," he said softly, his voice carrying a note of genuine admiration. "You're my favorite model. You're on the cover of the magazine in my heart." She laughed, brushing it off as a joke, and returned to the fitting room to try on another outfit. From his seat, Nicholas watched her with a mix of tenderness and relief. For a moment, the weight of recent events seemed to lift. Later, they headed out to lunch at a restaurant. Their table was tucked away in a quiet corner with a breathtaking view of the city, twinkling like a blanket of stars. Mary Bell was savoring a plate of pasta when she suddenly looked up, her expression a blend of surprise and embarrassment. "Nicholas, I completely forgot about my beetle," she blurted out. He raised an eyebrow, setting his wineglass down with a hint of amusement. "That rusty old thing," he teased, a playful grin forming on his face. "I'll buy you any car you want." Her smile faded slightly, and she shook her head. "That rusty old thing was my grandfather's car," she said softly, her voice trembling at the end. The words hit Nicholas like a wave, leaving him silent for a moment. He looked down, his throat tightening, before lifting his gaze with a newfound determination. "I'll take care of it right away, Swan," he said firmly. Nicholas spoke with determination. "I'll make a call and send a tow truck to take it to the best repair shop in town. I want them to restore it and make it look brand new." Mary Bell looked at him with a mix of gratitude and surprise. A warm smile spread across her face as she tilted her head slightly toward him. "Thank you, Nicholas. You're such a wonderful human being. And a know-it-all," she added playfully. "My favorite know-it-all. Indiscretion may echo the impatience of a heart, but it's also the spark that can ignite authenticity, allowing us to understand each other better." They both chuckled softly. The camaraderie between them felt natural, as though they'd always been part of each other's lives. As they walked toward the car, Nicholas turned to Mary Bell. "How about a walk? I need to clear my head." Mary Bell smiled, a smile so radiant it could light up the darkest night. "Of course," she replied gently. They strolled through a nearby park, and almost instinctively, Nicholas took Mary Bell's hand. She blushed, but didn't pull away. Suddenly Nicholas's phone buzzed. "It's the detective," he announced, putting it on speaker so they could both hear. The detective's voice came through, clear and to the point. "Mr. Reynolds, the clinic has agreed to provide the records related to your sperm sample. However, there's a condition. They require you to waive any intention of filing a lawsuit against them in the future. If you accept, we can proceed." Nicholas looked at Mary Bell, searching her face for confirmation. She nodded softly, her support evident in her eyes. "Do what needs to be done. Proceed immediately," Nicholas said, his tone firm and resolute. He ended the call, and with a sigh of relief, resumed walking alongside Mary Bell, still holding her hand. That simple gesture seemed to ground him in the midst of the chaos. "Your grandfather would probably have a saying for all of this, wouldn't he?" Nicholas asked, smiling faintly. "Of course," Mary Bell replied, laughing. "I memorized all his lessons as a child. It was his greatest legacy, apart from the beetle, of course." She added with a laugh, "A child born through science carries not only their parents' legacy, but also the memory of a faith bold enough to challenge the boundaries of time and nature." A few hours later, Nicholas's mansion felt quieter than ever. The absence of the triplets, taken by the authorities, left the grand home feeling hollow despite its opulence. Nicholas and Mary Bell sat together in the living room, sadness cloaking them like a heavy blanket. The silence was broken by Nicholas's phone ringing. It was the detective again. "Mr. Reynolds, we've confirmed everything regarding the clinic's case." The detective's voice was steady and clear. "They admitted to an error in implantation. Your sperm sample was mistakenly used for a patient who intended to conceive children biologically, hers and her husband's, who is African American. When the triplets were born and clearly Caucasian, the mistake became obvious. Nicholas took a deep breath, trying to contain the whirlwind of emotions. "What did you find out about the mother?" he asked seriously. "The biological mother is the woman who came to your mansion and left the children," the detective explained. "Our investigation shows she was outraged by what happened. It seems she decided to leave the triplets with you and fled the country with her husband that same day to seek assisted reproduction in Europe. It doesn't appear she has any intention of returning or getting involved in the case." After ending the call, Nicholas immediately called his lawyer to relay the update. "Nicholas, this changes things in our favor," the lawyer said. "With the biological mother out of the country and no custody claim from her side, the case now revolves solely around proving they share your DNA, that you are their father." Days later, Nicholas's office felt unusually cold. Standing in front of Mary Bell, who wore a stylish new skirt, Nicholas clasped his hands tightly together, his knuckles white with tension. "Are you not going to open it?" she asked softly, her voice barely more than a whisper, breaking the heavy silence in the room. Nicholas shook his head slightly, his eyes fixed on the envelope, as though it might explode with the slightest touch. "It's strange," he finally murmured, his deep voice trembling ever so slightly. "I've faced meetings with CEOs, lawsuits that could have destroyed everything I built. But this terrifies me." Mary Bell stood up slowly, moved closer, and placed a steady warm hand on his shoulder. "Nicholas, whatever is written on that paper, it doesn't change what you feel for them. That's already clear in how you've looked after them, how you've cared, and how you're still fighting for them now. Like my grandfather used to say, laws and papers may change, but what you build with your heart and hands lasts forever." Nicholas looked up at her, searching for strength in her gaze. Taking a deep breath, he finally picked up the envelope with trembling hands. The sound of tearing paper echoed loudly in the room, each rip amplifying the tension in his chest. He unfolded the document carefully, his eyes scanning the printed lines with a speed that betrayed his effort to remain calm. Suddenly, his hand froze, the paper shaking visibly. "What does it say?" Mary Bell asked, her tone filled with anticipation, but careful not to push him. Nicholas let out a sharp exhale, as if he'd been holding his breath the entire time. After closing his eyes for a moment, he reopened them, and an unexpected spark of emotion lit up his face. "They're mine," he whispered, the words quiet, but carrying the force of thunder. Mary Bell raised a hand to her mouth, tears spilling over, as she stepped toward him, collapsing into his arms. "They're my children," Nicholas repeated, his voice now steadier, letting the truth sink deep into his soul. "There's no doubt." The paper slipped from his grasp, fluttering onto the table as they shared an embrace stronger than any they'd ever known. There's no greater certainty than knowing what is given from the heart can never truly be taken away. A month later, Nicholas stood by the window, staring out at the horizon, as if trying to fully grasp that what he had fought tirelessly for was now finally within his reach. Mary Bell, radiant as ever, stood nearby, her blue miniskirt accentuating her elegance as she balanced effortlessly on her signature high heels. Across the room, the attorney who had guided them through the ordeal flipped through documents, his furrowed brow evidence of his focus, though his eyes often darted toward Nicholas with a mix of curiosity and hope. Suddenly, the stillness was interrupted by the chime of the doorbell. Nicholas and Mary Bell exchanged a look, a shiver running down their spines in unison. The moment had come. Mary Bell, her voice shaking with a mix of anticipation and nervousness, asked, "Is it time?" Nicholas didn't say a word. Instead, he walked toward the door with purposeful steps, though there was a tension in his posture that betrayed his internal struggle. It felt as if the weight of the moment might cause everything to collapse or transform forever. Reaching the door, he paused to take a deep, steady breath before opening it. The movement was firm, but his hand betrayed the emotions he was trying to keep in check. On the other side of the doorway stood two uniformed officers and a social worker holding a basket in their arms. The soft cries of babies filled the air. One of the officers spoke, his tone serious but respectful. "Nicholas Evans Reynolds, we are here to deliver your children." Nicholas froze for a moment as his heart began to pound uncontrollably. His hands trembled, but there was resolve in the way he reached out to take the basket. Inside were the triplets, tiny and crying, their voices piercing yet somehow grounding. The moment their small bodies were placed in his arms, Nicholas felt as though the entire world had stopped spinning. Overwhelmed, he stood still as their cries softened, sensing the warmth and security of their father's presence. Mary Bell, overcome with emotion, rushed to his side, tears streaming freely down her face. Without hesitation, she carefully lifted one of the babies from the basket, cradling the tiny figure in her arms and gently rocking back and forth. "I can't believe it," she whispered, her voice breaking as she stared at the baby in awe. "They're so small, so perfect." Nicholas, his eyes never leaving the faces of the babies, took a deep breath and spoke softly, almost to himself. "They're mine. They're my children." Mary Bell turned her tear-filled gaze toward him, smiling with a love so deep it was almost palpable. Her voice was tender but firm. "I wish they had been born from me. But I love them, Nicholas. I love them as if they were." Nicholas looked at her, his expression shifting as a new determination seemed to light up his features. He adjusted the basket slightly in his arms and replied, his voice steady, "That's something we can make happen." Mary Bell, still holding the newborn baby, furrowed her brows in surprise. "What are you saying?" she asked, her tone a mixture of curiosity and confusion. Nicholas hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath, his voice unwavering as he explained. "There's more of my sperm stored at Pure Love Fertility Clinic. The detective verified it for me. I never authorized them to discard it." For a moment, Mary Bell stared at him, processing his words. Then she laughed, her tone light-hearted as she tried to brush off the seriousness of his statement. "You're joking, right? You're always so full of surprises, Nicholas." She chuckled again, but her laughter faded as she noticed the unflinching seriousness in his expression. She stopped. Her smile faded, replaced by a growing realization. Nicholas's voice softened, though it carried a weight of certainty. "I want to build a family with you," he said, locking eyes with her. "From the moment I saw you pushing your old beetle, I told myself, even in my arrogant way, that woman is going to be mine." He paused, his gaze unwavering. "Mary Bell Stewart, will you marry me? Will you help me give these triplets more siblings, all with the most wonderful mother in the world?" Mary Bell gasped, her heart racing as tears of joy spilled down her cheeks. She couldn't stop smiling as she inhaled deeply, letting the moment sink in. Her voice, full of warmth and love, trembled as she answered, "Yes, of course, yes. And Nicholas." She laughed softly through her tears. "When I saw you pushing my car that day, I thought to myself, that handsome cocky guy is going to be mine, even if I have to hike up my miniskirt just a little." The room erupted in laughter. Even the lawyer, who had been quietly observing the exchange, couldn't hold back his chuckles. Finally breaking the silence, he said with a grin, "Well, I have to say, this is without a doubt the most heartwarming case of my career." Everyone joined in the shared laughter and celebration, a moment of pure happiness as they basked not just in the legal victory, but in the formation of something much greater, a family. The lawyer, still smiling, added with a playful tone, "Nicholas, Mary Bell, you've won more than just a case today. And just so you know, I'm officially volunteering to be the best man at your wedding and the godfather to these triplets. Now they have a family." She once said, as my grandfather would always remind me, "A true home isn't built with bricks or wealth, but with patience, love, and the willingness to share your soul with those who mean the most." "Mary Bell," Nicholas said, "even as a model, you remain true to yourself." She smiled warmly, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Nicholas gave a subtle nod to the lawyer, who, with a knowing grin, stood and walked over to a nearby shelf. From a stack of papers, the lawyer carefully pulled out a magazine. Opening it, he revealed the cover. There she was, Mary Bell, dressed in a stunning golden miniskirt and high heels. The photo captured her radiant confidence, elegance, and undeniable beauty, leaving an unforgettable impression. Nicholas turned to Mary Bell, his eyes filled with affection. In a tender tone, he said, "I wasn't joking when I told you that you're the cover model of the magazine of my heart. I own Fantasy Magazine, the most prestigious publication in the city, even across the United States. You, Mary Bell, are officially our star model." Completely taken aback, Mary Bell couldn't stop the tears from welling in her eyes. With a beaming smile, overwhelmed by emotion, she spoke with heartfelt sincerity. "Now, I want to be your pregnant model for the most successful edition of your career, my love." Nicholas looked at her, his happiness shining in his gaze. Each held the vision of their shared future, one filled with joy, love, and family. With triplets on the way, and their lawyer witnessing the scene with a grin, their bond solidified, not just professionally, but in the unbreakable commitment they had made to each other and the new life they were building together. If this film touches your heart, leave your mark with a like. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to explore more meaningful stories with us. Share your feelings with us and tell us your own stories. Every word you share is a building block that helps create our strong and enduring community. Together, we'll create a warm space where everyone can share and connect. Finally, don't miss the incredible stories coming your way soon. We're always here to bring you the best selections, full of deep values, yet entertaining. See you there.